think as a professional athlete, it's important to get into investing early. We don't know when our careers are going to end, and we have to plan for the future and plan for future incomes.
You work with sports people from all over, different codes, don't you?
Yeah, look, it's one of our fastest growing client bases. We're working with the AFL players, the cricketers, the A-League, unions, a big one, as well as NRL.
So when I was younger, when I first broke into the Socceroos team, I was in the same team with these stars, these guys I watched on TV growing up.
When I first spoke with Chris, I guess my first impression was like good old school investor.
As Scott mentioned, I thought commercial might be the next play for me, just from the cash flow basis. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in property investing is using the right people. It pays dividends later down the track.
G'day everyone, how you going? Phil Tarrant here. I'm the co-host actually. Not the host, I'm but a nobody here trying to steer this ship of inside commercial property. Joined by Scott O'Neill, director, founder, Rethink Investing. Scott, how you going?
Very good, mate. Good to be back again.
Here we are. It makes me nervous. I'm a big stickler for headphones, and I find it really challenging when I can't actually hear my voice conducting conversations. Really,
you can see those nice long locks now.
I know. I tried to get a haircut last Friday.
I don't think you've had a haircut for about 2 years, by the way.
I don't like it. I get my hair cut as infrequent as possible, but I get to a point where because I wear a tuxedo a lot, right, and I start looking like an idiot with long hair. But hey, what's going on with Rethink? There's news afoot. There's big events happening. There's lots in the works.
Yeah, well, day after this podcast is recorded, we're got a huge rebrand launch. So been in business nearly 10 years and held that same logo for the entire period. And it's just basically launched for the business to be a bit more corporate, the direction we're going. We're combining all the companies because there's 6 or 7 of them at the moment. And it's a new direction for the business. We're coming away from that kind of, small buyer's agency feel and going more into that next level wealth management position. So really exciting. Huge amounts of work have gone into it. So we've got a gala and a couple of hundred people are going to be coming and just a good time, a couple of drinks. Yeah. We'll see you there.
I'll be there.
See what happens.
That's pretty good. So 10 years.
Yeah. So it started in 2015, but I was kind of, doing a love jobs in the 2014s and that, for free. But it's gone quick. But at the same time, it feels like, I've aged 30 years in the process. So.
Mate, you're not grey yet. Give it time. You're still reasonably young, but it catches up with you pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
You get a nice 30s, and then you get in your 40s, mate. You start slowing down. And anyway, but I'm sure you'll be right. And how's NZ going? I was out there the other week, and you're out there. Our paths didn't cross, but I was in Queenstown, and mate, I was actually having a look around property while I was out there.
Yeah, look, it's really good value. Like if you're going to spend, say, $1 or $2 or $3 million, you'll get a better deal there. That's sort of the facts of it. Better yields. The lending is not as preferable. Like we mentioned that last podcast, there's a big interest rate cycle.
Did they get a cut today? Did I see that?
Last month.
Last month, was it?
And they're predicting another 6 in the next 12 months. So much more rapid decline than Australia's predicted. So that's going to create opportunities for the local market, and that'll bring the interest rates in line with where you need them to be. And the yields are higher than Australia at the moment. So it's going to be a nice combination. Those who get in early to that market should do quite well. It's almost like, my feeling is it's like investing when COVID first hit in Australia. There's that period of uncertainty. It's definitely still there, but there will be a period where they start coming back, and that's when it's too late, really.
You in there yet? You got anything?
We're looking.
It's always cagey.
Yeah. There's but we're doing multiple transactions, a week at the moment over there. So it's a good market.
How are you finding the agents? They're
lovely.
Yeah, they're nicer than Australians.
They don't know what a buyer's agent is, but part of the launch over there was.
Do they go, who's this bloke? Because he's representing someone. I don't believe him.
No, look, the brand's known over there. Okay. It's this podcast.
Because of this.
Yeah, 100%. They there's no huge or larger commercial buyer's agency podcast, or very little in the residential factor as well, for that matter. And a lot of them listen to Australian podcasts. And you can see it on the iTunes charts. Like we feature quite high on their business channels, almost the same as what we would in Australia.
Yeah.
It's just different market, but they get their info from similar sources.
So this is our 52nd episode, but it's the first episode we've actually had a professional athlete join us
Yes.
for a discussion. I'm quite intrigued around this, and I must admit I know nothing really about the sport that Chris Ikonomidis plays, and I actually embarrassingly had to Google it because I saw a guy come in the studio and went, okay, what's this? And I looked at the brief and went, oh, okay, he plays soccer. I better go and look up who he was. I didn't realise that you're quite well known, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Phil. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and I do apologise. I'm not. I like to play sport, but I'm not a big sports watcher. But my favourite, I don't even know what it's, soccer team in. Is it A-League? Is that what it's called? A-League?
A-League.
Is Macarthur FC all the way.
Perfect.
It is it's now my favourite team.
You've got to a good start, Phil.
Well, hopefully Scott will take us out to a game. I'm sure they've got private boxes out there and they serve. Where's Macarthur FC? That'd be Campbelltown, right?
Yep.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that your home ground?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Sydney South, in Cronulla.
Okay. Yeah.
Was in the Shire until I was 15, before I moved overseas to follow my dream, to follow soccer. And been out of Sydney for 13 years until 2 months ago. I just signed for Macarthur FC.
So you were playing in Europe somewhere?
Yep, I played in Italy, I played in Denmark, and then I played in several clubs across Australia, from Perth Glory to Melbourne Victory.
And then you signed with, again, like this is really good that I don't know anything about this, so I can ask a question. Is Macarthur FC a good football team?
We're good. Last year we won the cup, which is good. There's the league and then there's a cup.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're a newer team. They were only added a few years ago, but they're building good foundations.
Yeah, well,
sure.
it's like they're out in the western suburbs of Sydney, so they've got my vote. I'm a proud Westie who loves it, but we'll have to come and see a game. But so you're a football player and also a property investor.
Yes.
So at the moment, you're a football player first and a property investor second?
At the moment, yes.
At the moment,
my football is my passion. It was my dream since I was 4 to do this for a job, and I was one of the lucky ones that got to do it.
That's pretty cool. You play for Australia and all that sort of stuff. And
yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's really impressive. My hats off to professional sports people. I know I don't do soccer stuff. I'm a sort of water type of guy, but I know a lot of people who have performed at very elite levels, and what I've seen watching them, the diligence and the passion that they have, and the routine and the repetition in their sporting careers, which makes them successful, really translates into them really effective investors, because they apply a lot of the same disciplines to it all, and it's a great enabler.
Yeah, I think there's so many ups and downs with, I think, every professional sport. You have to deal with hard times and good times as well, and I think that those 15 years, if you're lucky that you are a professional athlete, it builds such big resilience in you, so that when you go on to other facets of life, you're kind of primed and ready.
And you're doing the right things also. A lot of sports people I know, they are very good at their craft, but they're not typically very good at saving money or spending it wisely. And it's a bit of a blanket statement, but I don't always think that professional athletes get the right advice. A lot of the times, and again, I'm just generalising, but a lot of the times clubs will have a relationship with sponsors, and those sponsors might be financial advice firms, and they're not always the best people to be providing advice for the sports players or the teammates. But it's good that you're on the way, mate. That's going to give you a life after footy, whenever that is.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. I tried to start as early as possible, and you never know where your life's going to lead after football. I think we all athletes have this kind of date that we don't know when it comes, but it's a day we stop playing, and you kind of have to look to what to do next.
Yeah. And to your point, Phil, it's funny you mentioned the athletes have got these financial advisors. But one thing I've noticed probably in the last few years is they are getting a little bit better than maybe the historic ones before the Royal Commission.
Yep.
Because we've noticed huge amounts of A-League, AFL, cricketers, they're all considering commercial property, and they're getting recommended mostly from their accountants and brokers, but often from these financial advisors. So especially like the cricketers, for some reason there's obviously, I don't know, they all get the same advice from the same cohort of people. But, like you've mentioned, Chris, you've got a 15-year career. You've got to use that lending capacity when you can, replace your income as quick as possible. And here we are. So let's talk about your personal portfolio. When did it all start? How did you get into it?
So it started for me in 2017. I was playing over in Denmark at the time, and I felt ready. I felt kind of, okay, I've planned this since I was even younger, but I feel I've got the deposit and I want to get started on the property journey. So I was looking for properties for a while. I wanted to get something that had a better yield than average, and I settled on a property in Western Sydney, out near St. Mary's, with a corner block, big block of land, old house at the front, and a relatively new granny flat at the back.
It sounds like pretty smart going. I know a lot of people probably would have bought a different property first, but that sounds right on point. You must have had some education there or some influence to do that, because that's typically someone without investing time, energy and effort to actually understanding property probably wouldn't have made that as their first investment from others.
I guess I was I'm much more educated now than what I was when I purchased it. But I had a few principles that I wanted to follow. I wanted to get good blocks of land, established homes, nothing brand new, nothing off the plan, obviously, and something, for me, it made me more comfortable having something with a better cash flow, because in my industry, you don't know what your next contract's going to look like. So having that better than average yield, it made me feel better, and it's worked out well.
Yeah. Do your family invest in property? Just sort of something that your family does or your parents do?
Not really. It was more of a something where I just got bullish at the time. I think there was I think 2017 was a good year of growth, and I probably got right on the back of that. So I kind of bought at the tip. And yeah, as an athlete, we get a lot of downtime. We train hard for 3-4 hours, and then the rest of the time you can either play video games or you can look at stuff that's going to help your life progress.
So how many Aussies were you sort of in your cohort when you were over in Europe? Did you have a peer group of Aussies that you were sort of chatting with and hanging out with?
So the Aussie soccer players are spread all over the world. There's a lot in Australia, obviously, with the A-League, but then there's guys in Europe, there's guys in Asia, there's guys in the Middle East. At the time when I was in Italy and Denmark, there wasn't an Aussie really close to me, but we always reconvene for Socceroos camps once every couple of months, so we got to catch up with each other then. And
so say you're convening with a Socceroos team, so Aussies out there come back together and all really capable players. Do you talk about wealth?
So it's an interesting question. So when I was younger, when I first broke into the Socceroos team, I was 19 and I was dealing with a lot older players and big players at that time. I was earning a really minimum wage, and I was in the same team with these stars, these guys I watched on TV growing up, and I roomed with a guy called Nathan Burns, and he definitely put me on the right path to property. He said, Chris, as soon as you can, get into it. And that was it, light conversation. They spoke briefly about where they put their money and how they invest, but nothing too in-depth.
And today, is it more of a currency for people to actually openly talk about it? Is it, or people talking about what cars they're buying?
Yeah, you get both. In every change room, you got different groups of boys. Some like the cars, some invest in property, some play video games.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was talking a bit off topic, but similar theme. One of my oldest clients from like 8-9 years ago, he's a fiery.
Okay.
And he was talking about how they got like 10 hours of downtime all day. So they go down these rabbit holes of how to get rich quick, or they're thinking about it all day. And it's either you think about buying a sports car, or how do you build wealth? Like it's probably a similar theme, isn't it? You got a lot of time to plan.
Yeah, 100%. We finish most days 1:30, 2 o'clock, and like you just said, when I signed it, the first team in Italy, it was a massive club, and my first day in the first team the car park, I went in and there was Ferraris and Bentleys and Porsches, and it was overwhelming for me. But I started to clue on quick that I don't think these guys are managing their wealth as well as they can. I don't want to follow that path of waste your money on flashy things and work for 10 years, earn good money, but waste it all. So I always thought there's got to be something better, a more strategic path.
You see it in when you get cohorts of people together, like you talk about fireys, cops are the same. Yeah. I know a lot of cops who are property investors, and you see one guy gets into it and gets obsessed by it, and then you see a whole station you get whole stations of property investors, right? Yeah, yeah. Same would happen in sporting teams. It happens in the military a lot as well. When the guys or girls are deployed, they've got intense moments where they're really, really busy, but then there's other times where they're just got plenty of time and they either talk about X or Y. So it's really important that you surround yourself in the right peer group.
Which is opposite to like the doctor effect, or the surgeons. We've spoken to them on this podcast. They're so busy and they're protected by these large salaries that don't end until they're in their late 60s or even later. And they're not as good with their money. So it's really good to see, the fireys, the police, the teachers that can plan because they can do so well with not huge salaries and it's compound interest. If you get in early, it's the trick of it all, like Chris is exhibit A, just starting at a very young age.
You must feel a bit of an obligation now that you're sort of one of the more senior players to keep an eye on the younger folk coming through and get them on the right pathway.
Yes, I do. I spoke to, when I was playing in Perth, I spoke to a few players about 4 or 5 years ago and I remember 3 of them I told boys, just forget your crypto. That was in the height of the crypto craze. Just muster a deposit and buy something in Perth and buy something on a decent block of land. And 2 of them did. And we've seen kind of Perth's gone through a bit of a rush now, so they've done well.
So did you ever, I imagine you guys get paid monthly like most people. Did you have a regime of like, I'm going to put this much money in savings, this much money for this? How did you go about building deposits or managing your money effectively so you could actually start investing in property and, from what I understand, move reasonably quickly in building a portfolio?
Yeah, so I didn't have any kind of complicated structure which I managed my money. It was obviously paid for things to live, paid my rent. I've been renting since I was 16, which doesn't help. But and as soon as I had the deposit ready, I couldn't wait. I never got drawn into the get-rich-quick schemes. I love the delayed gratification of kind of a long-term investment as well.
Yeah, and you used to listen to a lot of property podcasts while you did.
Yeah, during COVID. Yeah. We got stood down from football and, everything was up in the air in the initial part. So I thought, geez, I'm 23. I better start looking at other avenues, something I could be interested in the future. And I just started to deep dive into all things property.
And so would you say you got sort of really connected with it or even obsessed by it? Was it something
you could say I got obsessed. I got definitely more educated. So I made better decisions from that point, investment-wise. But yeah, I loved everything about it.
So you bought your first place in St Mary's, which you still have today?
Yes, I've kept everything I've bought.
So I'm sure that's doing okay with the Badgerys Creek sort of airport links and all this sort of stuff. That was growth.
The reason I did get St Mary's. I heard a whisper that they're going to put a metro where they ended up putting it, and they've put the Badgerys Creek and the new metro line as well.
So that's your first property was Resi. What's happened since then?
Since then, I purchased a property in the Southern Shire in Sylvania.
Okay.
It was a massive block of land. It was 1,200 square metres. And once again, it's dwelling at the front, dwelling at the back, both older dwellings. But it's basically a development site for one day to put something a bit better on there, potentially 3. I bought it with the long-term view that once I get more sophisticated, get better, get more in the know, then I'd have more confidence to knock it down and build something new and just harvest equity that way.
Okay, so there's 2 properties which have a bit of an X factor, dual income, with upside potential in time, but you don't have to rush to do it. So after Sylvania, what was the next place?
After Sylvania, I purchased a 4-bedroom house in Cronulla.
Okay.
Which is where I'm from. And that one was a little bit of an eye to the future where I'd like to eventually settle down with my family. So I thought I'll get that now and rent it out and just keep that in the portfolio because I just didn't want to get outpaced of the Cronulla market at the time because I saw it was going quick and it's like a peninsula, South Cronulla. So it's got, I think, 1,000 houses on it. So I thought I can keep investing elsewhere, but I just don't want to get paced out of Cronulla because that's where I'd eventually like to live one day.
And after Cronulla?
After Cronulla, I did my first development, which is still undergoing. I'm building a duplex in Caringbah South.
Okay, same sort of area?
Yeah, it's 2 kilometres up the road from Cronulla, which has been fun. It's been ups and downs. I started the kind of whole thing a few years ago, but it's been a slow burn, but I'm not in any rush. So,
well, there's your Greek heritage coming in. They're great developers of properties, the Greeks in Sydney. So it's good to see you doing. So you're really hands on. Do you get stuck in? Are you project managing? And
I'm not project managing. I've got a builder, but there's still a lot of moving parts to it. There's the architect to deal with. There's council. There's part of it I'm project managing, the landscaping and all that other side of it.
And you enjoy it?
I love it.
Yeah.
It gives me something to do. I finish training at 1:30, 2 o'clock, and when I was younger, I used to just find people to hang out with or have a coffee, but now there's always emails to respond to and things, inquiries to make. And
Well, it's good to have purpose outside of your principal purpose,
course.
right? Like,
I feel like it helps with my job. It helps with football that you're not spending all day thinking about football. You've got other avenues and you get the release that way as well.
yeah. So how did you sort of collide with Scott? What's the sort of background to all that?
So a good friend of mine, Bryce Holdaway, introduced me to Scott. I met Bryce for a coffee.
So you've been listening to Bryce's podcast, obviously. Yeah, Property Couch, good podcast.
Just during COVID, I started and I featured on that podcast a few years back and maintained a relationship with Bryce and went for a casual coffee with him and we were chatting and I told him I might think of going down the commercial route and he just said, Scott, he's the guy.
That's not a bad endorsement,
And,
Scott.
Yeah, I've got to thank Bryce.
I'd like to think Bryce
for
knows
that
what
one.
he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, when I first spoke with Chris, I guess my first impression was like good old school investor. You know, you invest like, you know, what you'd, you know, textbook say is old school, you know, buy and hold, get the land, mostly sort of where in areas you're familiar with, obviously Sydney boy, you were living in Melbourne at the time, I think, and it just made perfect sense. As soon as you already knew you wanted to go commercial, but like if you didn't, you would have been like textbook, this is now your next step because you can't keep buying these big freehold properties in Sydney, especially if your income's going to subside at some point. So, you know, but he's got such a great base to then go hard into commercial and that's what the plan is, I guess. So, had a great chat. Chris knew what he wanted. Again, it makes my life easier. The more experienced, the better, because commercial is more complicated. It's the same fundamentals, but there's an extra element, which is, well, there's two. It's really like you got to understand all the different asset classes and then the businesses within those asset classes. And you were a natural to it. And we ended up looking at a whole bunch of properties. And I'll let you explain the one you landed on.
Yeah. So as Scott mentioned, I thought commercial might be the next play for me, just from the cash flow basis. I just wanted to, thinking after football, not having to rely on a good salary anymore. How can I supplement that? And I landed on Scott's business, and it was fantastic working with him. He's I gave Scott a lot of freedom to find me something great within what I wanted, and he was fantastic. He sent me a few really good properties, and we ended up going for one in Queensland, in Townsville, which was an industrial block. It was fantastic. It's settled a couple of months ago now, so couldn't be happier.
That's all in place. Did you share the numbers on that? Is that possible?
Yeah, so it was circa 2 million, 7% yield, freehold, quite low site coverage. And I knew as soon as I saw low site coverage, I was like, Chris is going to love this.
You probably need to explain to people what low site coverage means.
All right, so think about development upside. You know, when you've got a low site coverage, which, you know, might mean the building's occupying 25% of the land. Yeah. Can't quite remember. It was about 30-odd% coverage. It was quite low.
I think 25. It's a 940 square metre coverage, and it stands 5,000 and something.
Yeah, it's very low.
Okay.
So there's room to basically build.
That's good.
I know. I should have checked up before the. But yeah, it was one of those deals. I said, Chris, you probably won't get a better opportunity than this because industrial is just frustratingly tight. Like it's very hard to find a good deal. But you know, where we went through our networks, found an off-market deal. Agent was happy enough to let us have first go at it. Looked at it, negotiated a few $100K off the price, and that brought it to a yield which was very respectable. You know, and. It just went well, and there's probably a long-term play, which we looked into because the thing is with Townsville is you're buying below replacement costs mostly, so it doesn't make sense to develop. But when the rents get up maybe $50, $60 a square metre higher, which they will in time, all of a sudden the margin will creep into it, and then there's a development play there. So, you know, for now you're positively gearing a land bank, and then you've got a development play for that land. maybe in 3 or 4 years' time or 5, and even if you don't do it, who cares? You rent the hard stand out for about $25 a square metre and, really good introduction to commercial and
positive as well. It's putting money in your pocket.
Different state as well, which I think that was important because the land tax for your portfolio would be creeping up, no doubt.
Yep.
In New South Wales.
Hey, what sort of structure are you buying all your stuff in?
I did all the resi in my own name and I've just started through a trust now.
Yeah, okay. So you got a good accountant then that's sort of helping you out with this sort of stuff. Yeah.
But all the other parts of the purchase with Rethink, they were fantastic. Finance and the solicitors as well.
Yeah, although that was my experience with Rethink. I've got to probably buy some more stuff through you, Scott. I've been talking about it for a while. But
I've been talking about this shopping centre for a while.
I've got to sort that out and speak to my accountant. But
maybe go to New Zealand, mate. That'll
maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
be the guinea pig.
Be the guinea pig. It's I'm just really curious. So if you were in Europe making dough, you're getting paid in the currency where you lived.
Yes.
How was it trying to sort of shuffle the decks and getting money back to pay for property and stuff?
Yes, I was 21 when I moved all my euros to Aussie dollars and it was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
I lost a lot. Looking back on it now, I probably lost $20,000 just with the transfer back because I just didn't know what I was doing.
So you just went, I'll put it there and bang it through,
So, but I just got it done.
Did you ever consider buying in Europe while you were there?
Not really. I looked around. I was in Italy as well a lot, and I looked at the properties that were always cheap compared to Australia, but the overall sentiment in Italy was negative towards the economy and property. So, and I always wanted to come back to Australia to live. So, I wanted to set up.
You can't see yourself. Maybe not allowed to talk about this because your club probably wants to keep you, but you wouldn't think about going back to Europe to play again, or Australia your home.
I'd definitely consider anything. Yeah, for us athletes, we're just. We could be gone in a whim with a week's notice if a club comes in and, it's the life.
It's the life, yeah. Well, I guess you've sort of got your home base covered irrespective of what happens sort of professionally now, which is a nice place to start. Are you sort of driving through trying to get as much property as you possibly can right now and worry about paying down a debt in the future, or are you actively trying to pay down debt?
I think a few years ago I was more bullish. I think athletes have this chance where they have a high income and they're young, so they're attractive to lenders and banks. And I think that's the time to use your leverage. If you do it properly and you consult the right people like Scott and you put protective measures in place, then I think that's the time to load up on good debt, buy good assets. And then once you get to the later end of your career, you can start to think more cash flow. How can I sustain this with no income or a small income? Which is why I think starting in resi and ending in commercial would be ideal.
Yeah, it's a fine balance you need to play with because of, it's we all have professional jobs, but you've got this added complexity to it. Is that you just don't know, right? Like, so you got to be building out a portfolio, thinking, well, I'm making a good dough, so I want to aggressively build a portfolio. But there's this big what if, right? Yeah. So your asset selection is probably even more pertinent than what it would be for your normal professional sitting in a sort of a white collar job, right? So you've got to get it right. So is your portfolio hungry from a cash point of view now, or is it reasonably well balanced and in a neutral position?
Now it's well balanced after the last purchase. It's doing fine. Won't take much maintenance from my part to keep ticking over. Yeah,
so it's self-sustaining largely, which is a nice sleep at night sort of factor, right?
And I always factor in when I do my equations and see what I can afford. I like to not take into account my income at all. So when I sat down by myself at a cafe about 6 months ago and I ran the figures, and I ran the figures off a lot of Scott's previous deals that he's done, yield-wise and purchase price-wise, and it just clicked in my head. It makes sense to do it. Get money out of the offset. I know it's earning me decent at the moment, but long-term it's gonna fade away. And if I can take the hit now and get into commercial earlier, the better it'll be.
And you said that finance is a big part of it. Do banks like lending to professional athletes? Because they would also have this sort of, this what is factor. Does is it an issue that, that they're thinking about maybe injury or your ability to earn, or you might have a slump and, your club might can you? Is that a problem?
I'm not sure. Not in my experience so far. I think it depends as well of which sport. Some sports are harder than others. Maybe Olympians who get paid extremely well one year and then not so well the other 3 years. But we have contracts where we're paid a salary, and those it's
a lot more
standard.
Predictable around it. Yeah,
there are some good deals for athletes out there where they can get higher LVRs for certain properties and professions, and you sort of need to use it, as Chris was mentioning, because the best way to look at it is you've got to do it 4 times faster, because your career is, instead of being 40 years, it might be 10 years. So, but you get paid more. So everything happens a lot quicker, and you've just got to be so much more accurate with your decisions, because you don't have that buffer of 40 years.
Could be hyper-focused, really. You don't have the safety net of time.
No.
But, that's it also. I know a lot of professional athletes that go on to other careers where they earn considerably more than what they did when they were a professional athlete, right? And in many ways you can make yourself a job.
Of course.
While if you do this effective property development or whatever it is over time. So it's about being focused and having the ability, and I guess the influence to have smart people around you to actually help you down the pathway. But it sounds as though you've done this a lot really independently, which is super impressive.
I started a lot by myself. If I had my time again, and I was lucky enough to meet Scott 6 years ago, I would have loved it. He would have helped me a lot. He probably would have got me in commercial.
Do you think you would have done it different if you had? Would you do it differently if you had your time again?
Might have gone into commercial maybe 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
But for me at my age, it's all experience and learning. So I love the fact that I did the little mini development that I'm doing now. I've learned so much about construction. And now I've dipped my toe in commercial, where I'm still learning so much today. I've been listening to your guys' voices for a while now.
Oh, sorry about that.
And,
is it helpful? Is it like
it's,
listen to the podcast?
It's fantastic. I put it on in the car, and even if I don't think I'm absorbing it, it'll come up later in my mind 3 months ago. And I thought, that knowledge base is actually there.
Yeah, that's cool. What would you like us to do differently? We're like athletes. We're coachable. What do you think we're missing, or what do you think we can do on this podcast?
Nothing off the top of my head. I think it's you make it very relatable, and I think hopefully me coming on here as well shows a lot of the listeners to not be intimidated by, the kind of the players that are in the game of commercial, that it can be done for anyone as well.
Yeah, you do a lot more work with athletes, from what I understand.
Yeah, they're one of our fastest growing client bases.
And
I think it's, again, I'm not taking credit for it, but I think the market is pushing more away from residential, because think about what we're talking about, replacing incomes, not even replacing incomes now, just having a self-sustaining portfolio, like you said, where it doesn't rely on your income. It's quite hard to do that with 70, 80% debt and residential property.
Yeah.
Because even if you find a 5% gross yielding property, pay all the outgoings out, you're left with, 3% net? So it's pretty hard to do much there, especially with tighter lending. So a lot of people are looking for alternatives, and one is to use less debt and buy slower, or you can actually go straight into commercial or funds or something like that. And there's different cultures in different sporting arenas. So
I'd like to ask you about this actually. Who are the smartest?
Good. Oh, I've got to be careful.
I've asked that before already. But
I won't say the truth. I'll tell you who the most.
Say water polo players, by the way.
Yeah. the most heavily invested in commercial are the AFL players.
Okay.
Maybe there's more of them. I haven't done the stats on it, but there's a lot of guys down in Melbourne all getting paid pretty good money.
Yeah.
I think on average they might get 100, 150 grand more than the average NRL player as well. Okay. So there's that. Cricketers, but there's not as many. But the ones that are up the top are
they get good
huge pays. So they've got commercial properties, and the odd Olympian here or there, but they're obviously very specific to when and
feast and famine, really. Isn't it?
Exactly. But a lot of them have great sponsorship deals, and again, they all think income these days, because it's almost a defensive play. Capital growth. Once you know more about commercial property, you can assume you're going to get capital growth from commercial. So you take that out of the equation, go, all right, well, I need good cash flow as well. And And the amount of information out on this asset class now is huge. So we can expect to see more of these guys. But yeah, right now the AFL, second place would be A-League.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's because Chris is talking to a lot of people, but word gets around these clubs. Like, I have no doubt, and I've spoken to Chris, there's a lot of people that follow what Chris does, especially being a senior representative in his team. And, the young kids would definitely follow what he's done because it's an inspiration to them to have, 5-6 properties and all pretty blue chip things.
Yeah.
That's if everyone could do that, then they won't be stressed what job they have after that. Some may not even work, but everyone will want to work, no doubt. But you can to choose how many days a week or what industry. Like, you're not going to go straight into getting another degree, which used to be the other thing a lot of sports players used to do.
And then you can go get a job maybe in marketing after a career. But for you, Chris, hats off, because what I understand of my very slim knowledge on soccer is that the kids who are really good at it, they start young and they have to travel outside of Australia, often without their families, and they get looked after obviously where the clubs that they go, but it can be quite a solo existence, I guess you could say that, for a period of their early career. So to actually have mentors who have gone through that and committed to the craft of the sport, but can help them out with sort of that financial education. It's always been in sporting communities. The bit that's often missed is whose responsibility is it to teach players around good money management. And I think it's good that it happens from the senior players in the team. So, you'll create a legacy there for the whole bunch of younger players who are probably going to do pretty well in property moving forward. Does anyone just say, shut up, I don't want to hear about it anymore, Chris?
Some of them don't want to borrow it, but a lot of them are really receptive to it and want to better themselves in their future as well. So, and like Scott mentioned, none of us know when our last year as an athlete's going to be. And a lot of us, like myself, gave up our education to pursue this dream. So I dropped out in year 10. So I didn't even get to finish schooling to move overseas and pursue soccer. So, you got to switch on early and have that aware in the back of your head when you're playing and investing, hopefully. Well,
this the aspect you learn through sport is mindset and being able to shape and craft your mindset, right? And it doesn't always go in your favour, but if you're able to press those internal buttons to realign and reconfigure yourself, you can move ahead on the sporting field as well as, cutting out the noise. The same thing needs to happen in property investment. So are you guys working on the next deal yet? What's happening?
Well, this one just settled, and I think, the plan is watch a few months' rent come in, and you've obviously got the development stuff, but it's all a lending game now, so it depends on your budget
100%.
will be the next.
I think definitely I want to jump in again when it permits. I've definitely got that resi portfolio sitting, waiting to kind of be cashed out to put onto commercial. So
you're going to keep it all? You're not going to sell any of it? You might do.
We'll see if
here we go.
Scott brings me another good deal like that. I might have to.
He's highly old school, as I said. Hold forever, which maybe that's the. I date, my wife's Greek, and they're very like, let's hold on, and it's a great strategy. The buy and hold forever. But it's like balancing the spreadsheets out. It's like, if I keep my money in residential, what's that mean? And then if I shift it, I've got to pay capital gains tax, and maybe it's not worth it. But my experience is generally refinancing resi, so you don't have to sell it, because that land will keep going up. Especially at your age, you've got 5 decades of growth ahead of you, maybe 6 or 7. Who knows? But that land is always going to be valuable. But refinancing from resi to commercial is the most economical if you can support the loan. And
for you, and thanks for coming on and sharing your story, because I know a lot of professional sports people like to sort of keep their personal, and which is great. And what we're doing is talking about one very small aspect of your life. But I imagine working with professionals and people like Scott, discretion is probably pretty important as well. Because you've got to tell pretty much everything. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going. This is how much money I'm making. This is what it's got to be an important aspect of it that you can work with someone who's trusted.
Yeah, when I was lucky enough to get a sit down with Scott, I put everything on the table. I sent him this long email with my exact financial situation, all my properties, my LVR, my savings, and my salary, and basically said, "This is me. helped me find a good property.
Yeah, it's a very mature way to do it. That's good. Well, I like watching this sort of cultivate, and maybe we can head out and watch a game one day. I'd probably enjoy that. You know,
good. Yeah,
yeah. We don't really do much socially. Yeah, there you go.
Come around, guys, anytime.
Yeah, no, that'd be really good. Now, Scott, some questions because these are really, really popular.
Yep.
And we'd like to finish all our podcasts with them. Aspect of which we started a couple of months ago, and we've been getting a lot of currency. Now we have some I guess famous guests.
Not famous.
Do you hate being called famous?
Oh, a little bit.
Are you well recognised if you're sort of out and about? People go,
it depends the area. If it's a soccer heavy area, then I might get stopped. And
do you get heckled and stuff, or most people go, oh no?
In Europe, I got heckled a lot, depending on results. If we lost a game, it was bad news walking through the city the day after. But if it was a good win, then it was the best thing in the world.
It's okay.
So,
All right. That wasn't a burning question. I actually have some which are properly related. I'm going to start off, Scott, with you. Should investors under 30 always buy residential?
As a first property, I generally say yes. Like just using some real high level numbers. If you've got 350 grand cash, you would go into commercial and buy about $1 million property because you got your 70% lend and put stamp duty in there. So that same money's 350 will get you up to about 1.4 mil in resi. So you could imagine over a 15-year period, that 1.4 might turn into could be 3 mil in that period. Commercial, you're on that asset base of 1 million, so it might turn to 2 million over that same period. So there's almost $1 million different in capital gains. However, the big difference is the cash flow. You're probably going to be negatively geared around, it depends on your interest rates, but you could be 30 grand behind a year in the current market, but you'd be positive about $20,000, assuming that 350 is cash for the $1 million property if you're getting a 6.5% net yield. So there's a 50 odd grand difference in cash flow per year. Multiply that out by 15 years, that will definitely chip away a lot on that capital gains difference. So the answer is just due to experience, it's the safety nets are greater with residential. But if you've got a very secure job or maybe you've played the stock market for a while, commercial is going to give you profits more via cash flow compared to capital growth. And that means more serviceability. So there's pros and cons, and it does vary greatly. But I know, knowing what I know, if I was me going back, which is obviously impossible, I wouldn't know what I know. If I was a first-time investor, I would start with commercial. But if I was recommending to, say, one of my sisters, family, got to play it safe, I'd say residential.
Okay, a good answer. Question for you, Chris. What age did you begin investing?
I began, I believe, investing when I was 22,
Okay.
which is 7 odd years ago now. And I've been doing so ever since.
And how long did you spend in the resi space before you went commercial?
I spent a good 7 years in the residential space before graduating, you could say, to commercial.
And for you, how important have sort of value-add properties been to your investment journey?
Value-add properties have been kind of a key strategy in my investment journey so far. I like to think I've taken that same strategy into my commercial property.
And this is probably comparative, but what drove you to look at commercial at a young age? And I guess, Scott, sort of sub-30s, probably younger to be looking at commercial property?
I think we're about similar age when we both started looking at commercial, and it was for the exact same reason. We had our taste in residential property, did well out of it, and it was a diversification play as well as somebody to fix the cash flow, because if you keep going down that residential route, you're not going to get too much further. If anything, you're going to create yourself a significant liability, which might be a little bit scary to unravel, because and that's something I've been quite public on this podcast and others. Just be careful not to get flogged down that dead-end road of just buying and buying and buying low-yielding residential property, because it's the best thing to start with. But if you've got 20 of them and then all of a sudden you don't have that same job supporting that loan and maybe a recession hits, like, you're going to lose those properties because they will revalue them at a potentially a stricter, serviceability rate. And that's I've seen it. I saw this happen in the GFC to large landowners, particularly around that southeast Queensland mark, and they lost dozens of houses. So you got to be a bit careful doing that. And this is a diversity play. You still got risk with the banks, so you've got to manage that very well. But at least it's a different department with commercial.
And Chris, what's been sort of one or two of the biggest lessons you've had or learning experiences sort of investing in property?
I've learned a lot investing in property, but one of the biggest is probably use good people when investing. If I had my time again, as I said before, I would have consulted Scott and rethink years ago. And it mitigates risk for me and for other people like me, having an expert look through your stuff and look through your deals who does tens of thousands of these, I assume. So
it's good. Well, thanks for your time, gents. I really enjoyed it. And Chris, mate, best luck with the career. Best luck with your long career.
Thank you very much, mate. Thanks for having me.
Your long professional sporting career and your what I would imagine longer career as a property investor and what it sounds like to be a developer. You must get a lot of satisfaction sort of working with high performing sort of professional sports people or professionals, right? Who
I love it.
Probably easy to work with because they not scared to make decisions.
Well, yeah, you're so right. And the best thing with Chris as well, like he knew what he wanted. I think he even flew up to see the property before we put it under contract. I'm like, just hold off. We haven't got control of it. Don't be too keen. But perfectly, timed that run and saw the property, and you knew you wanted to buy it from that point. We were just ticking boxes at that, which is a really good way to operate. He sees the value. I'm not trying to be a salesman because I'm no good at that. The deal sells itself, and if it didn't, I wouldn't care. You just tell me what do you want to look for next run, and it was a really good relationship that way, and look forward to continuing it for many years.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Phil, and thanks Scott for the purchase and guiding me through the whole process. It's been fantastic.
Well, tell your friends, and we're coming out to Macarthur FC to watch a game, and I look forward to that. But and it's funny how often you get sort of stopped on the street with people who sort of play sport or are sort of involved in sport at high levels that, they are engaged and connected with this. And what I would say is that I would say all sports people have got an obligation to their teammates to make sure that they're making smart decisions as well, because I think you certainly have the haves and the have-nots when it comes to smart investment decisions with professional athletes. And I'd like to think that there's enough information out there, including this podcast and organisations like Scott, to help people make more informed choices. If you like what you do, remember to subscribe, leave us a review, send the questions in. Best place to send them is...
leave it on the iTunes chart, or if you just want to have a chat with one of our team, just Google Rethink Investing, easiest way, and we're going to have a chat about your portfolio, just like we did with Chris. It's important to understand where you're at before you invest in commercial. We're heavily investing in residential, again, as you know, because we see some great opportunities out there. And you've got to be careful where you invest because there's a lot of hot markets. But we've been doing this longer than most, and that gives us sort of a calm head outside of these little hot zones. We try to go where they're not so hot and then become hot later. So
nice. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.